Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, part of my weapon trees, there are now just 4 weapons left. The 2 ranged and the last 2 in the one-handed slot, which are both heavy damage dealing weapons. As you can see, I have a lot of XP on a lot of weapons. Now, obviously the ranged weapons aren't really my style, and there are multiple reasons why I'm going to be so hypercritical against the ranged weapons. And it's not because the weapons are bad in any way, it's because the execution of the game mechanics does not allow for them to be effective as the particular role would expect them to be. So let's go to the musket. Alright, so ranged weapons, this is the thing in the game, right? Ranged weapons aren't highly effective, and they aren't highly effective for 2 reasons. Number one, they aren't effective because you cannot fire from hide points. You cannot fire from vantage points, and you cannot fire from hidden locations. You can't get yourself out of the line of fire and shoot. So everything that's put in this particular side in Trapper is actually going to help you with a live fight. That means a fight which is on the ground. And everything that I see in Sharpshooter requires you to have great distances between yourself and an enemy. I will go through the 2 right now, and you will see why it is slightly balanced for the way that it's made, but it is not perfect for most playstyles. So let's get into this. Now, as you can see, I haven't passed level 11. That's because these are really unreliable weapons. They're highly expensive to use because of the fact that they run on ammunition. They don't have any superb abilities or strategies that can be used with them. So let's go with it. Okay, so the first one is Trapper. The first thing that it does is deploy a trap that lasts for 20 seconds. When triggered, it causes its target to be rooted, immobilizing them for 3 seconds. Okay, so you can drop these traps on the ground. They last for 20 seconds and then they root an enemy. Now, theoretically speaking, this is a good way to deploy assault when you're using a rifle. However, there are some weak points to this here. You only get 3 seconds of hold, and it takes you about 2 seconds to reload the weapon. So you need to have one shot ready and a deadly shot to start with, reload and perform a second deadly shot to actually knock down the enemy. If you aren't fast enough, your enemy will break out of the snare and will attack you before you have a chance to reload for the third one. And some creatures will stun you out of reload continuously. Sorry. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Trap damage. Traps apply rend to targets that trigger them, increasing damage taken by 20% for 3 seconds. Now, although this is a good perk, increasing the amount of damage that they take for 3 seconds, that means once they are snared, you can fire at them 3 times and actually 2 times and actually kill them a lot easier because of the 20% increased damage. It still doesn't add up enough because you need a high level bullet like or a calcium bullet, which is the highest level bullet you can have, and using that type of massive damage to augment this type of fire isn't really that effective for most situations. Most creatures take between 4 and 5 hits to take down. Low level creatures take 2 hits to take down. Unlike any other weapon, it doesn't apply a constant amount of damage. They are really good against certain enemy types. I think the ancient enemies really can't stand the ranged weapons. They take a lot of damage. I think they take about 1,000 per hit from my gun, which is quite weak by comparison. Scent of blood. Dealing damage to a trapped target heals you for 100% of weapon damage dealt. So, when the target is trapped, you can heal yourself in that little time. Now, trapped itself has a long recharge time of about 20 seconds, and if your damage is insane, and in that 3 seconds you can make a massive amount of damage come out, you can really heal by quite a bit. Now, although it does say it heals by 100% of weapon damage, I have never ever experienced the healing effect when attacking enemies who are trapped. And that is because most of the time I don't like using this gun as my secondary. I like using it as the primary shot and switching over to a second weapon to finish enemies. Double trap, ability to have 2 active traps. Now, if you want to use a double trap, the whole idea would be after taking a heavy hit, you apply the first trap, apply massive damage, make them run into the second trap and apply massive damage again. Now, the double trap does use up your trap, and you have to apply them quite close together. So if you apply 2 within 20 seconds, they're going to be held for 6 seconds before you get through. That means you have on the uptake of at least 3 shots to get into them in the trap, possibly 4 shots if you are lucky. If you have it in between, where there's a small space between your traps, and you manage to lock them into the first trap, hit them twice, in the second that it takes them to reach the second one, you're already reloaded. You fire and you reload and fire a second time, you can get 4 shots off in the traps. But that's depending on your trap placement. Let's move on to the next skill. Stopping power. Overload your musket with gunpowder, causing the next shot to deal 120% weapon damage, staggering the target and knocking them back 3 meters. Does not stack with other overload shots. Okay, so I don't understand what that means, but let's go on. Lasting impression. Targets hit with stopping power are exhausted, reducing the stamina regeneration speed by 10% for 8 seconds. Good for PvP. Target hit with stopping power are slowed by 10% for 8 seconds. Slow reduces target's movement speed. Now, this is something that can be used in its application the way the game wants it to be used, but it's not really giving you what you would have liked. Stopping power, adding a rend to it would be a real good idea, because that's basically what you're doing. A knockback plus a rend will be a fantastic thing to do. If you can overload and use that 120% damage inside the trap, that would make a fantastic way to use it. Although you lose the knockback, you do get to apply a massive amount of damage, which can heal you up quite easily. Okay, moving on to sticky bombs. Throw a short range bomb that sticks to anything it makes contact with. Detonation will occur 3 seconds after impact, dealing 235% weapon damage to all targets within 3 meters. So that is a good thing about this. Yeah, the bomb is most probably the most powerful method to use the rifle. It's the most powerful weapon that it has, and you know what? It is usable in the short range only because it has a limited throwing radius. However, it's good for using it with the sticky traps. So if you have one of these traps active and you know that you're going to use the double trap, when you finish with your first trap and you know it's about to end, launch the sticky bomb, wait for it to hit the second one. Remember, you get weapon damage as healing, and fire off 2 shots into it in the second one. You will have enough time for that because you have taken off the 1 reload time, in turn using the sticky bomb instead. So yeah, you will get that 2 shots. That will mean 3 shots and 1 shot counting as 2. Possibly good enough to kill a creature. Some creatures can run through your traps and your sticky bombs. Okay, unflinching walk. Sticky bomb grants the player 40 stamina when it deals damage with an explosion. Direct hits with sticky bomb cause the target to be slowed by 15% for 3 seconds. Slow reduces target movement speed. Now, I've used this here personally in Windsward against the bears. It's a fantastic way to actually hurt them. Higher level bears don't seem to be affected by the sticky bombs. They cannot be trapped with the traps, and overload does not knock them back. So there's nothing you can do to actually slow them down or assault, but that's as good as it gets. Salt on the wound. Deal 10% increased damage to targets below 30% health. Weaken defense. Increase the stamina damage from standard shots dealt to enemies blocking with shields by 50%. Increase armor penetration against targets that are not blocking with a shield by 10%. Hustle. After a dodge, gain 10% haste for 3 seconds. Energy burst. Attacking a target with an active debuff restores stamina. Alright, I'll get to everything else on the lower end in a few seconds. Back it up. Walking. Stuffing movement speed increases by 10% when an enemy is within 8 meters of player. Empowering weakness. Hitting a target with an active debuff grants empower, increasing your damage by 5 seconds for 6 seconds. Tactical reload. Dodging reloads the musket, can only trigger once every 6 seconds. Kick them when them down, deals 10% extra damage to targets with an active crowd control status effect, slow, root, or stun. Okay, and here is the best one from the whole tree. Lethal combo. Increase musket damage by 20% against targets affected by trap tree status effects. So if any one of these effects are affecting them, you have a damage buff of 20%. Now, as you can see, this isn't such a superb tree. Number one, it doesn't apply massive damage to crowds. Number two, it's not going to help you in many situations. It's good to be used in a long range situation. So if you're not getting involved in the center, if you're trying to keep yourself away from aggro zones if possible, this is a good thing to use. Obviously, this isn't the best weapon to use ever. PvP, it's fantastic. It's going to work good against players, especially the trap and sticky bomb, along with the stopping power. If you apply these correctly, you can actually hold a tank in place and force their healer to take heavy fire while the tank can't move to change his coordination. If you have enough traps, you can actually hold a team in place and pick off members of a team as you want them. Now, obviously, using muskets is a crazy idea. Too many muskets in a single attack can end up losing a territory. Okay, sharpshooter. Powershot. Okay, now I use this here in beta, and that's how come I already know what I'm talking about here. Overload your musket with gunpowder, causing the next shot to deal 150% weapon damage. These are similar but different, as you can see. Initial engagement. When you hit with Powershot, gain empowerment, increasing damage by 10% for 5 seconds. First blood. Powershot deals 10% additional damage to targets with full health. Bullseye. Powershot headshots reduce Powershot's cooldown by 15%. Now, as you can see, the cooldown isn't substantially long. A 15% reduction is quite something. It's more than a 1 second increase on that cooldown, so it is going to make a big difference. Okay, let's get to the next one. Powder burn. Overload your musket with gunpowder, causing the next shot to deal 110% weapon damage and inflict a burn that deals 20% weapon damage per second for 9 seconds. Alright, next one. Backdraft. Standard musket shots deal 12% additional damage if they hit a burning target. Chronic trauma. If powder burn is a headshot, the burn duration is extended to 13 seconds. Now, as you can see, this is very good for a single shot target. These are going to be used for taking out heavy enemies. So if you manage to break the tank's block for a few seconds, impacting a powder burn or a power shot on them in that few seconds when their shield is down or when they stand is a fantastic idea. If you pair these up correctly, you can burn a tank down while they're holding their shield up. That's a fantastic thing to do. It also makes the shield, the tank a little bit more panicked in that moment. As you can see, this here has an effect for playing in PvP. However, in PvE situations, you can use this against a boss and run for your life, but it's not going to be effective against hordes. Hitting them in the head or power shotting them isn't really going to give you what you want. Shooter stance. Player enters a crouch aim stance to enhance shooting performance. While in stance, shots deal 100% weapon damage, mobility is reduced to 0 and reload time is reduced by 75%. Shooter stance ends after 3 shots. So you get 3 shots in shooter stance. If you're going to use this in PvP, you're going to definitely get a good amount of damage on an enemy. If you're going to power it up with the other 2 abilities from here, going for a powder burn and a power shot, and you're going to apply it on people in PvP, it's going to be fantastic for you. If you're using it in PvE, it's going to be a quick burn and you're going to swap over to another weapon, because this weapon doesn't have that much of mobility for crowds. You can use a warhammer or an axe as a backup. You could even try and use something different, a double ranged approach or a mage ranged approach or a healer's ranged approach. A healer can do this for 3 seconds or for one glancing ability like this here. Fire off those shots, drop your healing circle, run around and keep with the mage near you. this is a good idea. It's also a good one for a mage. Mage swapping from a fire staff or an ice gauntlet directly to this to get some heavy DPS in on a quick debuff. Okay, give me a second. I just need to move quickly. I hate the fact that it does that even though you are active in the menu. Okay. Shoot more. Shots fired before exiting stance increase to 5. Okay. And marksman. If 3 consecutive shots hit the same target, reduce all other musket cooldowns by 25%. Now, as you can see, this continuous cooldown effect in different situation really makes a big difference, especially when you have trees like this. If you reduce all your cooldowns by 25%, you're really going to have quite a phenomenal situation on your side. Alright, so critical reload. Landing 3 headshots within 5 seconds of each other grant an instant reload. Greater accuracy penalty while hip firing removed. Ballistic advantage removes damage fall off from standard musket shots on targets more than 50 meters away. Hit your mark, increased headshot and critical hit damage to a target the further the target is away from the player. Maximum increase is 15% at or beyond 100 meters away. Does not forego damage fall off. Okay, call shot increases musket damage by 5% after aiming down sights for more than 3 seconds. Called shot resupply. Standard attack headshot reduces all musket ability cooldowns by 10%. Okay, heightened precision while aiming. Successful hits with a musket grant a stackable 2.5% damage increase. The effects end when the player stops aiming down sights or after more than 5 seconds pass between shots. Max 6 stack. Okay, and last but not least, sniper. Add an optional 3x zoom view when aiming musket shots. Use mouse wheel or down to adjust zoom while aiming. Also grants 15% damage increase to all headshots. Now, the zoom is something that you definitely want, but here comes the big bad about this here. If you hit enemies that are too far away, or enemies who are outside of your range, you can't stack damage on them. It's something that they have implemented in this game to avoid players from playing the long range ploy. Now, the long range ploy is something that a lot of people use because you can obviously find yourself in these niche points where you can apply damage to enemies without them being able to attack you. I found them inside a lot of arenas, a lot of the areas in the game. There's a small rock or a small chest, and if you stand behind it, the enemies can't actually attack you or reach you. So they'll just keep themselves getting reset instead of chasing after you. It does make it kind of pointless to fight them, and if they ever knock you into that spot, they instantly will keep attacking at that point, and if you don't come out of that situation, they end up dropping their attack and reset to full health. It is kind of a pointless situation in the game that they actually have that as a way for things to work. I don't think that it should have been the intended mechanic. It's more than likely a mistake made trying to make sure that people couldn't get through the game too easily. I hope that I am not right about what I'm saying, because if I am right, that makes this a massive problem. I hope that I catch you all in the next video when I go through the next weapon, which will be one of the damage class weapons. See you all then, and have a good day.